All right, everybody, thank you and welcome. We've got a fun session on burnout. So today, let me just start with, for those of you that don't know, I'm Meenal Ham. I'm with M Squared Engineering, and I had the pleasure of helping coordinate the speaker for today. Don Miller, who's sitting over there, or will be sitting there shortly, he helped me come up with the topic, and we were able to secure Monica as our speaker today. So Monica Gunderson, she's with Gunzinger Incorporated, and also Action Coach. She's got a booth right out there, so please visit her and talk to her a little bit more afterwards if you have more questions. But she comes with an extensive 17-year journey in healthcare. She was emerged as a transformative leader, serving as the CEO of a hospital during the challenge posed by COVID-19. Currently, as an action coach, partner in the vibrant community engaged with 15,000 businesses weekly, she's transformed into a business coach and trainer. She passionately shares wisdom to business leaders, emphasizing that work should enhance life, not consume it. Speaks right into my policy of playing hard and working hard, not in that order. Her dynamic approach creates a meaningful impact on both professional and personal spheres. So with that, Monica.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for such a warm welcome. I have enjoyed my morning here with all of you. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. They shared with me that this session was going to be after lunch, so I needed to be energetic, include all of you. So please know that majority of my slides are actually questions that I'm going to ask all of you in the audience. So a little bit about my passion. As you heard, I was a CEO of a hospital. I took the reins in November of 2019. I had never thought that I would be heading into a pandemic, leading a team in a specialty hospital that specialized in vent patients. So very fortunate to have led a team through the 3 years of the pandemic. And I like to say, when my husband and I made the decision for what we like to say, I retired from there and started my second journey. Really, the reason is that I gave everything I had. And although we weathered that storm well with many different areas, I was exhausted. And so I am excited because today I get to share with you the parables of that and have a conversation with you of how do you not do what I did? Because some of the things I'm going to teach you today, if I would have applied those back in 2019, I probably would not have gone through some of the things that I've gone through. However, I'm super grateful for those times and emerged. So, you all chose this session, and I'm curious what your definition of burnout is. So again, I'm going to ask you to do lots of interaction with us. Who wants to share with me what your definition of burnout is? Yeah, thank you.
One area is not loving what you used to love to do.
Yeah. Not loving what you used to do or used to love. That's a great one. Yeah.
Waking up in the morning when you own your own business and you love your business, but you don't want to go to work like I'm shouldn't have to work today. Once I'm there, I'm fine, but in the mornings,
Yeah. Just don't want to go to work. Lack of motivation. Absolutely not inspired anymore. What else? How about some from my left side of the room? How about one from that side? Your definition of burnout. Yeah.
When you run out of gas.
You run out of gas, right? Absolutely. So I want to share with all of you, one thing that was really important as we were preparing this is that, first of all, I share my heartfelt gratitude for what you do. Having a little bit of an insight from what I learned in preparation and learning this morning, I can feel the pressures on. I can tell that there's a lot of opportunity knocking. I can tell that there's some resources, some timing, all of that maybe feel like it's crashing down. So first of all, I want to just encourage you to let down any guards in this room today. I want you to consider this a safe space. We are all humans, we all have feelings, and we all have a capacity. And that is different for everyone, but I hope at the end of the day, or at the end of our hour, you're not going to spend the rest of the day with me, but or see you at happy hour, that you can actually tell me something that you took away. So one of the things before I jump to the actual definition that I ask you to do today is to refrain from in your mind saying, I know. Anybody know why I'm asking you to not think in your mind, I know, as I'm talking or someone else is talking today? Nina.
It shuts you off to what they're speaking about because your mind is already going to what you want to say next instead of listening to it.
Yes. As soon as you program in your mind, I know, it stops learning. All right, so I know our children probably, if you have children, they're always telling you, I know. Just stop talking to them because they've already shut it off. They're not listening at that moment. But what I want to have you replace that with, isn't that interesting? So as we're getting everybody in here, I do want to share each of your tables do have note sheets. Please feel free to grab those and use them. But I really want to make sure, that we acknowledge that burnout is in 3 different areas. It's emotional, it's physical, and it's mental. And of those areas, kind of a word that wraps it up that maybe we heard some people saying is the feeling of exhaustion. And when we get to there, we typically experience some prolonged stress, or we're feeling overworked, and then we get to that burnout status. So what are some characteristics? What maybe does it look like, feel like? How can you put a taste with it? And definitely being negative, kind of seeing the world from a scarcity mindset, definitely detaching yourself. Today, I was really grateful for some of the keynote speakers talking about community. You're going to hear it again today from me, so I think it's a takeaway for you. The world is telling you that today. And just truly that lack of motivation. And you may not acknowledge it yourself, but you may see it in someone else. And today I'm going to ask you to focus on you. I'm going to tell you to make it all about you, about and I want you to think about, how has burnout affected you and your performance? And I want you to be honest with yourself of your effectiveness and or changes in your effectiveness. Everybody agree that we can all be honest with ourselves and safe and feel and just grasp this, that it's okay to feel burnout. So how has burnout impacted you? I have some thoughts, I have some experiences, but I want to know from an engineer standpoint, or in this environment, kind of how has burnout impacted you? What's an impact you've had?
Results in complacency.
Complacency? Okay. Procrastination. Absolutely. Poor sleep. Yeah. Can't sleep. What are some other ways you've been impacted? Not as productive. Okay. So there's a few in here that I'm going to share with you that I will share with you are really, really important. And one sign, one of the first things we are impacted by on burnout is actually our own well-being, actually taking care of ourselves. And so not prioritizing the pillars of our life that are important. So this may be your physical health, your mental health. It could be your eating habits, your gym habits, exercise habits. It could be your relationships, your personal well-being, your spirituality, etc. I want you to think about, are you meeting that when you're in a state of feeling like burnout, did you stop doing the things that are important to your own well-being? Professional performance is definitely impacted. All of a sudden you have someone or yourself, we're a high-performing professional, and all of a sudden you just can't seem to get the traction. You just can't seem to get the momentum going. The heightened stress levels, and you might not acknowledge the stress, but someone who you have a relationship with might be the first one to say to you, you seem pretty stressed. They might feel it around you faster than you acknowledge it as well. Decreased productivity kind of aligns with doing the performance, but you just can't get started. You don't know where to start, and you're not putting the beginnings with the ends, so a lot of times in burnout status aren't able to finish what you started. And really important, and this is talked about a lot today, is burnout will cause the strained relationships. So when we talk about relationships and strained relationships from burnout, who might that be? Who are all the people in your sphere? Who might be those people you have a strained relationship with? Family. Who else might you have a strained relationship with? Coworkers. Spouse. Yourself. Supervisor. Okay. For me, it was my children. All right. I just could not handle that on my plate, right? So we are going to talk about something that if you take one thing away today, I am going to ask you to write down this guiding principle and take it with you. So the thing that I want to tell you, when I experienced my burnout and I started talking with people and I re-engaged, people had a lot of advice for me and a lot of really good ideas. But I couldn't think of those when I was in my phases, and I quickly started to realize who is responsible for your burnout. Who is responsible for your burnout? Yourself. Okay, and I know some of you right now are like, Monica, absolutely not. I will tell you, if you take one thing away, you are responsible for your burnout. And let me tell you how to deal with that. So we teach the point of power. And that point of power right there, that dot, is every circumstance, every situation that you are presented at with life. It's what comes at you. And this is the really fun part, and that is every situation, every circumstance is actually neutral until you define what it is. So it just comes at you, and you in your own mind get to decide, is it good, is it bad? Is it stressful, is it motivating? So this is where the differences between all of us come into play. So this can be true for being late, for a point of power of feeling frustrated because of traffic. You can choose how to handle that situation. It can also be as significant as a dear friend of ours who just lost his wife after 9 years of a cancer battle. They chose above the point of the power every single day of her journey. So it can be applied to that spectrum. So if you are at the bottom of the point of power, this is where you are absolutely powerless. This is where you have no momentum. This is where you are in denial. And what happens in denial is we actually know it's there. So this isn't like I didn't know. This is something came at us, we learned something, and we were like, we're just not gonna deal with it. And you put it over into a box, or you put it somewhere to put it away. So when you do that, we're all human here, we've all done this. What happens to that box eventually? It starts to overflow, right? That just kind of escalates. So when you start getting like, I have to deal with this, and it's that situation of resistance, you start making excuses of why you are not going to deal with that circumstance or that situation. A very common one, I don't typically like to use it, but everybody seems to be able to relate, is when you go to the doctor and they tell you something about either weight or cholesterol or something like that, and it's like they recommend a responsible thing for you to do, and you create every excuse of why you can't do that. Excuses, when we are really polite, what we start to do is we start just to give them as reasons. We start to actually lose the idea that they're actually excuses and we're in control. The third one on the below the point of power is blame. And blame is when you start blaming other people and or just the world, just the economy, the government, the weather, right? It's just when you start saying, this is someone's fault, and you get stuck in that space. That purposely spells bed, and we like to use it in that acronym, like it's like you're not getting any momentum, you're powerless, and it creates very negative environments. Not just for yourself, but it creates this in your teams that you're working with, in the environments that people are around you. When you hear people deny, when you hear people blame, or make excuses or blame, you feel drained, you feel exhausted. So what do you do with those circumstances, and how do you go above the point of power? Is the first thing that you need to do is when it came to you and presented to you, you need to become responsible for it. And it is about that easy, as whatever the circumstance is, it came to me, I'm responsible. And just because you take that responsibility and you wire that in, all of a sudden you create positive momentum and you start being able to create some results and have some power. The next level is not just that I'm responsible, but I'm actually going to be accountable to this. And what we like about accountability, so it's not just a response, but we like the word count in accountability. So not only am I going to have a response and be responsible for this, but I'm actually going to count. I'm actually going to create some numbers. I'm actually going to create that GPS. I'm actually going to sit down and put some thought in this. And that is that accountability piece on top of the responsibility. And then the ownership is the top level. And this is where I heard a lot of business owners are here, consultants, and it's like, we own this ship. It is all, I own it. And when you get to that level, you can bring a team right along with you. That's when the team, you start to be able to inspire a team and lead a team. This is very powerful, and it's very positive, and it creates that positive momentum for you and those others around you. So in burnout, why point of power in burnout is you're getting presented things that when you go to below the point of power, what happens is you're not going to get any progress, and you are just going to continue to be in that space. When you go above the point of power, we love to call it the or. And with the or, it's like you are moving. You're getting some momentum. Point of power, everybody, make sense to everybody? Okay, awesome. Okay, so today, if you hear me going below the point of power, you can always tell me to come back up above the point of power. And by the way, I am a mom, and this works well with kids and spouses, so you can always let them know when they're below the point of power. So reasons for burnout. So beyond the idea of maybe just not taking it in and taking responsibility for it, there are a list of reasons that I want to share with you that I want you just to think about in regards to why may I be experiencing burnout? Why is one of my colleagues, one of my team members, why is my spouse my children experiencing burnout. And I really like this one. The first one is superhero-itis. And this is someone who thinks that they have to do it all. And there's a lot of literature out there now on this in regards to leadership and how this just absolutely will lead to burnout. So it's putting that cape on and always feeling like you have to solve the day. Another reason for burnout is a scarcity mindset. So I would share with all of you, I was 40 years later in life, 40 trips around the sun before I ever learned the difference between scarcity and abundance. And it all starts in the mind. And scarcity mindset is when you are saying there's not enough. There's not enough time, there's not enough people, there's not enough money. And when you wire that into your brain, it starts thinking that way. And it starts looking for all of those problems, continuing to speed up the burnout. Doubts and insecurities can lead to burnout. And when we're doubting ourselves or when we're feeling insecure, it's hard for us to move. And that doubt and insecurity just creates this almost like we're paralyzed. And when that doubt and insecurity can come from a mistake that we made. It can come from a new assignment. It can come from artificial intelligence entering the world and wondering if we can keep up with it, right? So the doubt and insecurity can drive the burnout. Feeling inadequate, like all this opportunity is knocking. There's high expectations for everybody in this room. And am I good enough? And if you're constantly questioning, am I good enough? Can I do it? It leads to that mindset of burnout and that status of burnout. Fear. I'm sure you hear a lot of things about fear. You already heard it today in the last session. But we want you to recognize fear is simply false expectations appearing real. That's from the 1980s. False expectations appearing real. So if you are fearful and you're worried about the future, you are burning energy and you don't even know if those things are actually going to happen. Burnout is caused by a focus on short-term gains and kind of what we would call the grind versus having that vision of the long-term accomplishments. And why can that? Because you can forget what you're doing, and it can feel like you're just doing the work and working hard and not making progress. So again, I want to share with you, there's a book out there called Grit, and it talks about being gritty, right? And so you can take all this information and just be aware of the impact that this can have on you. Just absolute overwhelm. So anybody in here ever have the feeling of overwhelm in the last week? Anybody? Okay. I expected that. All right. So we get a lot of things coming at us. And one of the things that we don't necessarily take time to do is prioritize everything that is coming at us, and we just feel overwhelmed. Where if we step back, partner with someone, go through the list, we can start to prioritize and not be so overwhelmed. And the last one, and this is really, really important, and I just want to say, is just really the lack of meaningful connections. Connections are extremely important in your co-creation work environments. It's important for you as an individual. And what can happen if you don't have those connections, you can start to feel really alone, and you might not be able to feel like you can get yourself out of the burnout stage. So make sure those are important. So strategies to mitigate burnout. Could some of you share in here some things that you do to mitigate burnout? What are some things that you do either for yourself or that you do in your work environment that helps your team with making sure burnout doesn't happen?
skip non-essential meetings and just do work.
Skip non-essential meetings and just do work.
So I am one of those mean bosses that says Mondays are Mondays, Tuesdays are not the new Monday, and it's an all-office day, and the first Monday of every month, we buy everyone lunch.
Very nice. Everybody gets lunch the first Monday. Did you have one?
As a management team, get together outside of work.
Yeah, that connectedness, right? So get together outside of work. Yeah.
Pick one thing to accomplish to gain a little momentum.
Yes. Pick the one thing to accomplish to get the momentum. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yep, know when to shut it off, right? Like, guess what? Work is still going to be there. Who's telling you you have to be on your phone at 1 a.m. in the morning? Typically, who's telling you that? Yourself. All right? Typically, and if you have someone who's telling you that as a leader, I would encourage you to have a conversation with them. So a few things as we talk about those. I do want to make sure that today you leave with some ideas. And one is, and we don't do real well with this, and that is to truly create your boundaries, but not just create them, actually protect those boundaries. And to protect boundaries, what's the 2-letter word we need to learn how to say quite a bit? No, right? Cultivate self-compassion. Who in here has I am statements written? They're affirmations that you tell yourself every day how great you are. Anybody? It is a proven psychological wiring that you can do every day. And when you tell your brain how great you are, it wants to go and meet those expectations. So please look up I am statements, affirmations. Be collaborative. Drop the cape. Listen to others. Hear what they have to say. Include others. Ask others questions. Bring them in with you. Build those connections. And communicate openly. So I want to share with you another fun thing that we do, and that is open communication. And we're going to talk about building the winning team environment, which is going to include risk-taking and 100% inclusion, which means everybody has a voice. But I want to talk about open communication, and something about burnout is you have to get to emotion. And what we do and what we encourage everybody to do for open communication is come up with something in your firm, in your organization, in your department that you create the space to open communicate. And what we do is we call it a WIFLE, and that is W-I-F-L-E, WIFLE. And what that is it's what I feel like expressing. And when you approach someone and you say, and you have this in your workspace, and you want to go talk to someone with a tough conversation, and you say to them, hey, Don, can I whiffle with you? Look at, he smiled, right? Like, it just takes away the hard part of it. So can we whiffle what I feel like expressing is? And the rule is, well, that person is expressing, you cannot interrupt. And you actually can't keep digging more. You thank them for expressing. So open communication is really important to hear how people are feeling in the workplace. Foster growth mindset. So when you think about abundance, you actually attract what you want, what you're thinking. So that abundance mindset, like, you know what? There's enough people to do this work of all these grants we're getting in dollars. Now we just got to go out and figure out how to find them and make ourselves who they want to come work for. Celebrate successes. The little wins are really, really important. And for someone who might be feeling burned out, or even yourself when you celebrate someone else, it's a great way to take a moment to start rebuilding into a positive progression. Accept imperfections. Anybody here a perfectionist? A few of us, right? All right. So really, some things don't need to be perfect. And so if you have things that you just don't feel like you can complete because you're looking for it to be perfect, letting that go can really help you gain momentum and traction. So a great example of this that I experience is I always wanted my email communications and my different communications to always be perfect. And then I just finally learned that I was just never sending anything in a timely fashion. And people can understand what I'm writing. It doesn't have to be written perfectly. And then set personal and professional goals. So we just got into 2024. It's February, almost March. Who has 3 personal goals written down for 2024? Nice. All right. So why did you write them down? Would someone share why it's important to you to write them down? What's your reason for writing them down?
Self-accountability.
Self-accountability. Great.
To set the boundary and then use that to say no.
Yeah. Set the boundary, know where you're going, and then you know how to say no. That's great. Anybody over here? So it's really important to set your goals, create that destination of where you're heading. So you see on this slide the B, and there's a really popular equation that's out there. We call it formula for success, and I'm going to give it to you today. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. And that formula for success is B times do equals have. So when we get up, and especially with the profession that you have, there's a lot of things to do. And we're typically making our to-do list. They even sell, the special stationery for that, right? That you get to write everything out. And you start thinking about, what do I need to do? And what we want to talk about is we're not human doings. We are human beings. And when we get into that space of doing, sometimes we are doing the wrong things because we aren't sure of who we are being. So I want to work this equation backwards, but I really want you to think about it. And the backwards is to truly identify, what do you want to have? What do you want to have personally, and what do you want to have professionally? What do you want to have with your business? What do you want to have for the team? What do you want to have for your contractors? What do you want to have for the outcome of the project? So know what you want to have and be very clear. Pretty easy for us to make lists of what we need to do to get there, especially with the engineering background. So it's pretty easy to make that list to do. But what isn't easy is how to actually learn what you need, who you need to be to actually do those things to have what you want to have. So B is all about your behaviors. B is about your belief system. Be courageous. Be a learner. Be a good communicator. So instead of getting up and saying, I got to have all these conversations today, what do I need to be? I need to be organized. I need to be kind. I need to be courageous, right? And it starts to change the game when you think about who you need to be versus just what you need to do. And you'll actually get more done by focusing on who you're being. So I challenge you, this is really fun, to wake up in the morning and then when you start thinking about, what do I need to do today, I want you to actually wake up and I want you to think about, who do I need to be today? Who do I need to show up as? First and foremost for yourself, but who do I need to be for myself? Who do I need to be for the team? Who do I need to be today? I also would challenge you, if someone asks you how you are doing, to pause for a second and say, I want to tell you how I'm being. And actually get to that level of sharing with them what you're working on from a be versus do perspective. So be times do equals have. There's a lot of information out there on it. I encourage you to take a look at it, but really think about working that formula backwards. What do you want to have? What do you need to do to get there? But really, who do you need to be to actually do what you need to do to have what you want to have? So when we talk about all of those pieces, a lot of it is about self-accountability, self-responsibility, and self-development. And then you bring that part into the team space, into the workspace. And so what we want to talk about on the last couple slides here is really talk about structuring team resiliency. So I want you to, how does burnout impact the work environment? So we're going to take a couple minutes on this. I would encourage you to talk to a couple people like kind of sitting next to you in the spirit of the conference. And I want you to talk about, how does burnout, an individual that's burned out, impact the work environment, and or a team collectively that is burned out impact the work environment. So let's take 3 minutes, let's get some chatter going and talk with each other, and then we'll share some of those thoughts in just 3 minutes. So please talk amongst yourselves. Great. I love everybody talking, and I can't wait to hear what some ideas that you've come up with. So I'm going to have everybody wrap it up for your chatter. It's great. And now we have a microphone that's going to come to you, which I'm sure is going to encourage all of you to speak up on what your group came up with, right? So if we could get 4 shares, so 4 hands up of something that was a takeaway from your conversation in regards to the question, how does burnout impact the work environment? Who wants to share first? We need 4. You can pick. Oh, okay, we'll go here. Please say your name and where you're from, too.
Christina Crane, I'm with M² Engineering. That sometimes the burden of workload can fall onto others, making kind of a trickle effect and having others go into burnout.
Mm-hmm. Trickle effect, absolutely. Number 2, who wants to go number 2?
My name is Dima Pochterov with Span & Associates, and we kind of had similar, but it was more emotional. And so if you're burnt out, your emotions show, and that's contagious, and that's going to also trickle to others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like contagious. Yeah, thank you. Right here in the middle? Yeah. See it. So we have one more, so someone be brave after.
Hi, I'm Francisca, WEDC. So my group was sharing how similarly it can trickle to others, and then you can find yourself being the one that's burned out. But also what was mentioned too is that it can identify a deeper issue with the processes of the organization if someone is feeling that way, and maybe there's some things that need to be changed.
That's great. One more. We went with a 4. Who wants to share the last one? Up front? Thank you.
Scott Lowry, Wisconsin DOT. I think one of the things you said was it becomes very disruptive to the workplace. If somebody is burnt out, it just, a couple of people said it spills over to others, and then the whole team essentially is then in a burnout mode, and you're not productive, you're not forward thinking, you're not where you need to be or want to be.
Great. Definitely. Thank you all for sharing. We are going to jump in. I want you to think about some of the ideas that you were talking about, and we're going to talk about 6 top ways to think about building resiliency with your team and create a winning team. So in the buzz, I heard about it, and I appreciate what are the comments in regards to like if other people are burned out, that I get burnt out. And strong leadership is really important. So I really want you to think about your leadership team, and I want you to think about what are they demonstrating as far as leadership skills. Are they listening to their teams? Are they being great communicators so expectations are really clear? Are they developing, continuing development? Are they bringing value? And so strong leadership is really important to creating that winning team. And if they're clear in their expectations, it is very helpful for people to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and not to feel that burnout. With a strong leadership, there needs to be a common goal in the workplace, and everybody needs to know what that goal is. So there's a common goal. Everyone's going to have their own responsibility, their own role, and their responsibilities and key performing indicators in there, but everybody needs to know the common goal, creating that vision and the long-term destination. Rules of the game. So some people call these points of culture, some people call it cultural behaviors, but you need to have rules of the game. And everybody follows the rules of the game. So if anybody in here watches football and someone breaks the rules of the football game, what happens? Flag. So what do you have in your environment that there's a flag thrown? How quickly is everybody getting called back to play by the rules? The fourth one is allow for risk-taking. And today, the session in room 7 was about ethics. And one of the things he gave an example is when you have work cultures that people don't feel like it's too risky to actually mention that something might be wrong, or too risky to give an idea, or too risky to talk up, that's when bad things happen. So support the risk-taking, support the innovation, and have one of the rules of game is that we respect any idea that's thrown out that people say to us. 100% inclusion, meaning everybody is involved. I was in a training recently, and the things is in co-creation, lots of things happening, call a meeting, have everybody there, and make sure the barking dogs are invited. Like, they need to come into the room. It's everybody talking. It's everybody sharing what they are feeling, and you listen until they have been heard. And then continuous personal development, continuous PD. So one of the slides earlier talked about the confidence in organizations, the confidence in leadership. And one of the things is that is a forever journey. And so don't have just expectations of your team continuously having personal development. Have that expectation for yourself and your leaders as well. Yeah.
So I want to ask you about the 100% inclusion.
Yeah.
I find that it's easier to get the very, barking dogs, as you said, to speak, and that kind of does not allow, even though you want the inclusion, how do you truly create that environment to receive that? Even, if you have the rules of the game, you still have those personality types that overtake the room.
Yeah. So that's a great question. The question is, how do you, the personality takes people that overtake the room. And so there's probably a lot of, but let me give you a couple ideas. One is, as a leader, you are pretty much the facilitator as well. So going around the table and making sure people know that they have time to speak, making sure you protect that time for them as well. The other thing that I would tell you is extremely helpful is if you do any type of behavioral assessments and education at your teams, so people can learn about other people's work styles. So DISC is a pretty common one, which is about a behavioral style: dominance, influencer, steadiness, conscientious. So people start to learn the why. Strength Finders is another pretty good one. So those would be a couple things that I would share, kind of pulling people together for you. And we're gonna kind of just pull it all together in regards to the engineering resilience. So at the end of the day, when you walk away from here today, I really just want you to think about, what do I need to do differently? What can I go and coach my team on? What can I talk with them about? And really talk to them about burnout. If we don't talk about it and we avoid it, what happens to that box? It just explodes, right? It's when you get the chaos. Recognize burnout. Don't be afraid to talk about it in your workplace. If you have someone that has not taken their vacation and their PTO is no longer accruing, ask them to take vacation. Figure it out with them. Help them of how to take that vacation. You need to own the burnout, and you need to ask everybody to own their burnout. And owning it just puts you in that powerful place and gets you momentum. Develop personal and professional goals. I'm so excited to see about 10 people in the room have some, but write them down, create that destination for yourself. Focus on who you're being, not what you're doing, and then really, really foster the connections and making sure that you have those strong relationships and the people that you can depend on. So we're going to leave a little bit of time for any questions and answers. As we wrap up, however, I would like you to take a couple minutes to write down 3 takeaways and or circle them however you want to do. And then as we're doing questions, we'll also ask some people to share. So you can talk amongst each other as well. We are going to just take 2 more minutes to do this, and then that will leave us 7 minutes to wrap up. So 3 takeaways and 1 that you would like to share. All right. So who wants to ask a question or share one of your takeaways? What do you think is important that you take away as well? We're going to go with someone on my right. All right.
Oh, Don.
Is this on? It's on. There you go.
Thanks. Don Miller, Oneida Engineering Solutions. The one thing that I really liked was the be, do, have thing. So in the morning when I wake up, I need to figure out what I want to have, who I want to be, to figure out what I need to do. So that I like that one.
It's a great one.
I just thought this is a good reminder for myself to set boundaries. Like when I feel like I don't set boundaries for myself, then I also violate the boundaries that other people have set up. So it's like I just have to constantly remind myself that you can't work 24/7, and when you do work 24/7, you drive the people around you crazy. So it's just a lose-lose. So this was great. I appreciate this.
Yeah. Good insight. Oh. Harvind.
So I hid all my affirmations in a bag and never went back to them. So I am going to re-own my affirmations because I kind of felt it wasn't very humble, but you said it's really good for mind setting, so I'm going to do it.
All right.
Woo, awesome. That's great.
And one more. How about we get one from my left side. Who's gonna go? Who's gonna be brave?
I know some of your names. I will pick one if I have to. There's one on that side. Is that side the winner side? Okay, you guys still are gonna think. Where was the hand? There we go.
Madeline with Pain and Dolan. The strategies to mitigate the self-compassion aspect. I was just listening to like a podcast yesterday and they brought up self-compassion. So just bringing that back and then kind of realizing what it is that they put it, what I was listening to yesterday put it a good example. Like there's the self-affirmations, which are really great. And then the self-compassion is basically talking to yourself the way you would talk to others. Like it's really easy to talk very negatively to yourself, but if you switch it to the aspect of like, okay, if my best friend told me that, how would I respond? And then just start talking to yourself like that. So.
Is there a Todd over there?
Do we have a Todd?
You've been nominated.
Oh, you got one? Okay.
So
All
one
right.
last one. I'm going to get this quote wrong, but there's a beautiful quote out there that's something like the most important words you'll ever say are the words you say to yourself when you are by yourself. So think about that.
Okay, since we have experts in the room here, maybe can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And so on your slide, you talked about building a winning team. Mm-hmm. And you had strong leadership at the top, common goal next. And then the next was rules of the game. And I kind of want you maybe to talk a little bit more about that. Maybe I kind of, is that rules of the game that you should, for your culture, for your team, you want to make sure you're setting boundaries and rules, not as, as we talked about here, 1 a.m. emails. Maybe if you could speak more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So rules of the game kind of like, and I will speak to it from like a cultural behavior standpoint or points of culture. So a lot of organizations, you should have your mission, right? And then you have your vision, and then you should have your points of culture or rules of the game. And that is the journey, how you're going to get there. So what is the expectation around building trust? That was a big one in the healthcare system is I build trust with others. Open communication. So the rules of the game are kind of like, this is how we do the work. This is how we're taking the steps on the journey. Was that helpful? Yes. Okay, you're welcome. All right, well, thanks everyone. I appreciate you coming. I look forward to hearing stories from you, and congrats on being here today. Thank you.